warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, my lecturer and my friends. Today I will present about social aspect of second language acquisitions. Okay, in this material there are some points we will discuss now. And then the first point is about social factors and second language achievement. Social factors determine the opportunities that learners have to engage with the second language and their motivations to do so. And then there are two theories on the role of social factors. And then the first theory is Kuhlman's acculturations model, and then the socio-educational model. Okay, so the first theory is Kuhlman's model. In second language acquisitions, the acculturations model is a theory proposed by John Kuhlman. So, this model called Kuhlman's model. Then, this model based on the social psychology of acculturations. And then this model, learners will acquire the target language to the degree they acculturate to the target language group. Okay, and then there are some factors, there are social factors that influence the degree of social distance. The first factor is social dominance. Social dominance means if the second language learning group is politically, culturally, technically, or economically dominant to or subordinate to the target language group, then social contact between the two groups will tend not to be sufficient for optimal target language acquisitions. Okay, then the second factor is integration pattern. Integration pattern, there are three strategies. The first is assimilations, preservations, and adaptations. In these factors, there are some conditions. The best conditions for the second language acquisitions is obtained when the second language learning group wants to assimilate into the target language group. And then the second conditions occur when the second language learning group wants to adapt to the target language culture for intra-group interactions without assimilating to it. Okay, and the next factor is enclosure. Enclosure refers to the degree to which the second language learning group and the target language group share the same social construct, such as schools, clubs, recreational facilities, professions, and trades. And then the next factors is cohesiveness and size. Cohesiveness and size. If the second language learning group is cohesive, it will tend to remain separate from the target language group. And then if the second language learning group is large, the intra-group contact will be more frequent than inter-group contact. So these situations will reduce opportunities for the second language acquisitions. And the next is cultural congruence. It means that if the two cultures are similar, social contact between the two groups more likely happen spontaneously, and thus the second language learning becomes easier like that. And then the next factors is attitude. Attitude means if the second language learning and the target language groups have positive attitudes towards each other, and then the second language learning is more easily facilitated. Then the next factors is intended length of residence. It means that if the second language learning group intends to remain for a long time in the target language area, it is likely to develop more widespread contact with the target language group, like that. And then the next theory is the socio-educational model. This model was proposed by Gardner, okay? And then Gardner, 1985, says that socio-educational model also emphasizes the importance of the social and cultural milieu in which learning took place. And then the model plots the connections between four aspects of second language learning. The first is the social and cultural milieu. According to SMART 2007, social and cultural milieu refers to the social and cultural setting, like monolingual and multilingual societies, where learning is taking place and which shape the learner's belief about other ethnic and linguistic groups. And then the second aspect is individual learner differences. It refers to the socio-cultural milieu, which affect both cognitive and affective. Cognitive variable includes intelligence, language aptitude, and language learning strategies. And then in affective variable include attitude, motivations, language anxiety, and self-confidence. And then the last aspect is learning context and outcomes. Learning context means whether it is formal or informal, and then the outcomes of learning can be linguistic and non-linguistic. And then Gardner's model developed to explain second language learning in classroom settings, in particular the foreign language classroom. And then the next point is about socio-cultural of second language acquisitions. Okay. This is according to Vygotsky. Sociocultural has focused on learning as a process rather than learning as a product by investigating the use that learners make of the assistance available to them. Nah, in the socio-cultural of second language acquisitions, children are seen as active participants in the learning process, are influenced by the culture of the environment in which they develop. And then Vygotsky emphasized the importance of examining what children do when they are given a task that is beyond their current level of development, along with some form of external assistance to help them solve it. The core of Vygotsky refers to the human learning process in general, which includes language learning. So the core of sociocultural theory is the learning and cognitive development. And then sociocultural considers a language as an important mediational tool in the development of higher mental process of learners. So mediations, according to Landorf and Thorne 2006, define the mediations as the process through which humans deploy culturally constructed artifacts, concepts, and activities to regulate. Okay? And then sociocultural of second language acquisitions also use zone of proximal development or ZPD as a core concept of sociocultural theory. Nah, there are two levels of development, the actual developmental level and the level of potential development. Okay. In the ZPD, play is particularly important activity, according to Vygotsky, sociocultural theory of development. Now, through play, children create a zone of proximal development in collaborations with others, in which they perform beyond their current abilities, since they have the support of others. Okay. And then the next point is about the socio-cognitive approach. Nah, this approach emphasizes learning as participations when mind and body come together in and through the interactions that occur in specific situational contexts. And then, according to Atkinson 2011, there are different views of the interrelationship of the social and the cognitive. The key construct in Atkinson's theory of the second language learning is alignment. Alignment means the learners participate in situated activity systems that support language growth, and what they come to do and know is embedded in the system. So, from a socio-cognitive perspective, the best way to promote second language acquisitions is to place learners in situations where the second language is necessary for social actions, where they need it to survive and prosper. Like that. And then the next point is the conversations analytic approach. Then, the conversations analytic approach emphasizes the importance of learning as a process, which is something that happens in social interactions. Then, there are theoretical principle consists of 2 points. The first is a key construct in the conversations analytic approach is interactional competence, conceived of not as a cognitive ability, but as how interactions is accomplished in different situations. So, interactional competence includes how the participants in an interactions mutually coordinate their turns, and then how roles are established and role relationship enacted, and then how linguistic and nonverbal researches are used to produce and interpret tones and actions, and then how problems are repaired. According to Casper and Wagner, 2011, note that interactional competence is understood to serve a double duty as both upon fundamental conditions for an as an object of learning. So learners need to know how to interact. So conversations analytic approach is concerned with how learners learn to do talk in interactions and how this leads to the acquisitions of conversational structure, and then also how specific linguistic forms like that. And then in this approach there are a methodology of conversations analysis. Okay. Conversations analysis seeks to describe how participants understand and respond to one another in their turns at work. There are 2 aspects of conversations. The first is turn-taking and repair. Turn-taking identified a number of roles that underlie speaker selections and chunks. Only one speaker speaks at a time, and then a speaker can select the next speaker by nominating or by performing the first part of an adjacency pair. And then the second aspect is repair. Repair as the treatment of trouble. For example, anything that the participants consider is embedding communications and treat it as a joint production. So repair includes much more than negotiations of meaning and corrective feedback. And then in the conversations analysis, there are three themes. The first is doing learning. Doing learning means that involve the interactional moments when the participants' focal concern of their interactions is learning. This is according to Casper and Wagner. So doing learning, how learners and their conversational patterns engage in explicit learning events. And then The next term is short-term development. It means that short-term development is demonstrated if changes occur within a single interaction or within subsequent interactions that occur shortly afterwards. And the last term is long-term development. Long-term development is used to investigate how learning takes place over time. Okay? And the next point is about the social identity approach. Nah, there are divided into two: social identity as a postmodern phenomena, and then the second is Norton's theory of social identity in second language learning. So the first point is about social identity as a postmodern phenomenon. Nah, social identity is understood as a relational rather than an individual phenomenon. Our social identities do not constitute fixed traits, but rather exist in a state of flux as they are discursively constructed through participations in interactions with different people in different contexts. And then Norton's theory of social identity in second language learning defines social identity as the relationship between the individual and the large social world as mediated through institutions such as families, schools, workplaces, social service, and law courts. Okay? And the last point is language socializations and second language learning. Okay. Language socializations is the practice by which novices in a community are socialized both into the forms of language through language into the value, behaviors, and practice of the community in which they live. And then central to language socializations accounts of second language learning is Love and Ventures 1991 Notions of Community of Practice. Nah, this refers to specific social groups in example classroom, second language learners, or insurance claim processors. Nah, Wenger 1998 proposed that a community of practice is characterized by mutual engagement. Nah, in example, through participations in a community, members establish norms and build collaborative relationships. And then the second is joint enterprise. In example, members develop a shared understanding of what unites them. And then the last, shared repertoire. In example, members establish a common set of communal resources, including way of speaking. So, language socializations theory, according to Zwingler and Cole 2005, the language socializations is practice come with ideologies. This is especially the case with immigrant or refugee populations where power and ideology play a major part in the discourses experienced by such learners. Okay, I think enough for my presentations. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.